Hello everyone, it's me Shanty and you're watching Biology Nowadays. In this video, let's learn about vernalisation and its significance in improving crop production. In a previous video on photoperiodism, we saw how the light and dark periods affect flowering in plants. Not just the light and dark periods, but temperature, especially low temperature, also affects flowering. Let's take the case of an apple tree. Most apple tree varieties require nearly 1000 hours or more of exposure to low temperature, or in other words, a winter chilling, in order to produce flowers and fruits every year. Low temperature means temperature below 7 degrees Celsius but above 0 degrees Celsius. Besides apples, pears, plums, and cherry trees are some more examples of plants that require exposure to low temperature for the production of flowers and fruits. A common characteristic of these plants is that they are all seen in the temperate regions where there is a cold winter. By the way, as you already know, in temperate regions there are 4 different seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And why is the winter chilling important for these plants to produce flowers? It is because this winter chilling ensures that these plants will not flower until the start of spring. Suppose if these plants flowered just before winter, that is, in autumn, then the following winter cold will not allow these flowers to form fruits. But after the winter chilling, when these trees flower in spring, flowers will get enough time to form fruits and seeds in the following summer season. Okay, that's the case of trees or perennials, which means plants that live for more than 2 years. Now take the case of annuals. As you know, an annual is a plant that completes its life cycle within one growing season and then dies. Some cereals like wheat, barley, rye, etc. are examples for annuals. And did you know that these cereals have 2 varieties? Yes, most of them have 2 varieties: spring variety and winter variety. Now let's take the case of wheat. The 2 varieties of wheat are spring wheat variety and winter wheat variety. The main difference between these 2 varieties lies in the season in which they are sown. Spring wheat seeds are sown in spring, and the winter wheat seeds are sown towards the end of autumn, but before the start of winter. The spring wheat seeds sown in spring are harvested in the following summer, which means it requires only some weeks from sowing to harvest. Now consider the case of winter wheat seeds, sowed towards the end of autumn season. They form seedlings in winter. Usually, the layer of snow protects these seedlings and thus helps them survive through winter. After the winter chilling, when spring comes, they resume growth. These plants will be ready for harvest in the early summer. This means that the winter wheat varieties will take some more time, that is, a few more months, from sowing to harvest when compared to spring wheat varieties. Even then, the benefit of growing such winter wheat varieties is that they produce higher yield than the spring varieties. But suppose that the winter was very harsh, and what if the seedlings were destroyed? That will be a great loss for the farmers. An American agriculturist, John Hancock Clippard, in 1857 had shown that it is the cold temperature of winter which makes the winter cereals capable of flowering during spring. So in 1915, Gustav Gassner, a German botanist, did some experiments in connection with Clippard's observation and discovered that he could influence the flowering of some cereal plants by giving a chilling treatment to their germinating seeds. What he did was a very simple procedure. He took some imbibed seeds, in other words, water-soaked seeds of the winter variety of the cereal rye. Just like the winter wheat seeds, winter rye seeds are normally sown towards the end of autumn season and harvested in the summer, which means they will take a few more months from sowing to harvest when compared to spring rye varieties. Gustav kept these water soaked winter rice seeds at 1 degree Celsius for a short period of time during germination. Then he planted the germinating rice seeds in spring and observed that these plants flowered and produced seeds in the following summer, just like the spring rye variety. And that was really great news for the farmers. Because this chilling treatment not only shortens the life cycle of the plant but protects the winter wheat varieties from possible harsh winters. This conversion of the winter variety into the spring variety by exposure to low temperature, in other words, a chilling treatment, was termed as vernalisation by Lysenko in 1928. So, vernalisation can be defined as the acquisition or acceleration of the ability to flower by a chilling treatment. Another important point to be noted here is that the effect of cold treatment is not immediately visible after vernalization. It will be expressed only at a later stage of the plant in the form of early flowering and only if necessary photoperiod is provided. Okay, so I hope that you got a nice idea about the vernalization technique, which did wonders in improving the crop production. This technique is sometimes more specifically called as artificial vernalization to differentiate it from the winter chilling, which is the natural vernalization. Now, take the case of biennials. As you know, a biennial is a flowering plant that takes 2 years, in other words, 2 growing seasons, to complete its life cycle. Some common biennials are beetroots, cabbages, carrots, etc. Shall we have a look at the growth stages of a biennial plant? In the first year, biennials grow leaves, stems, and roots. But during this time, the stem of these plants remains short and the leaves are just above the ground, forming a rosette. A rosette means a circular arrangement of leaves. During winter, these biennial plants go dormant. After the winter chilling, in the second year or in the second growing season, that is during spring or summer, the stem elongates greatly and then these plants will flower and produce seeds before dying. Here is the rosette stage of the biennial variety of the oil rapeseed plant during the first growing season. You may know that canola oil, which is widely used for cooking, baking, and food processing, is extracted from the seeds of this plant. Annual variety of rapeseed plants are also grown by farmers, but the biennial varieties give higher yield than the annual varieties. In the winter, these plants go dormant. In the second growing season, the stem elongates greatly, and then these plants will flower and produce seeds before dying. So now the question is, how can vernalization help us here with the biennial variety? Suppose that I did a vernalization or chilling treatment of a young rapeseed plant when it was in the early rosette stage. You may be wondering why I didn't use the seeds for vernalization. Please note that, unlike annuals, in the case of most biennials, vernalization may be effective only if the chilling treatment is done when they are in the rosette stage. For example, studies on the biennial variety of a medicinal plant, henbane, have shown that these plants will respond to vernalization only when they are in the rosette stage and have completed at least 10 days of growth. This is because, as we saw already, biennials require winter chilling a bit later in their life cycle when compared to that of annuals. Okay, so as I told you, suppose that we already have a vernalized biennial rapeseed plant. If I plant it in the spring, after 2-3 months in summer, the plants will flower and produce seeds. That means I can harvest the seeds of a biennial in just 3 months instead of 2 years, just like its annual variety. That's amazing, right? So, in short, in a biennial species, vernalization will induce flowering in the same time period as required for flowering of annuals. Okay, so that's the role of vernalization technique in winter annuals and biennials. In 1939, Melkers reported that vernalization leads to formation of an unknown factor or factor complex called vernalin, which is distributed throughout the shoot. There is an opinion that this hypothetical metabolite vernalin might be considered as a precursor for gibberellin synthesis because studies have shown that in certain biennials, gibberellic acid can replace vernalization treatment. Okay, so here comes another question. Do you know which part of the plant perceives the cold stimulus? You may already know that in the case of photoperiodism, it is the leaf blade of a plant that perceives the photoperiod. But during vernalization, the cold stimulus is perceived by the shoot apex. Valencic in 1964 showed that vernalization takes place only when dividing cells are present during the cold treatment. He showed that not just the dividing cells in the shoot apex, but all dividing cells, including those in roots or leaves, can be the potential sites of vernalization. Now let's check out the conditions necessary for vernalization. Firstly, the age of the plant is an important factor in determining the responsiveness of the plant to the cold stimulus. It differs in different species. For example, in annuals like winter wheat, the vernalization is effective only with germinating seeds. On the other hand, in the case of biennials, vernalization may be effective only if the chilling treatment is done when they are in the rosette stage, as in the case of henbane. The second factor that affects vernalization is appropriate low temperature and duration of the exposure. Most suitable temperature for vernalizing the plants ranges between 1 to 6 degrees Celsius. Besides an appropriate low temperature, a suitable duration of the cold treatment is also necessary. Usually, this duration is about 1.5 months or more. Next is the presence of oxygen. Vernalization is an aerobic process and requires metabolic energy. In the absence of oxygen, vernalization has no effect. Sufficient amount of water is also essential for vernalization. Vernalization of dry seeds is not possible. Next, let's see about the practical uses of vernalization. As you already know, vernalization shortens the vegetative phase of the plants and accelerates flowering. It increases the cold resistance of plants. Another use of vernalization is that it helps the seedlings or plants to complete their growth cycle without the hazard of severe winter conditions in places where winters are too severe. This helps in improving the crop production. Vernalization increases the resistance of plants to fungal disease. Vernalization also allows plants to grow in regions where they normally do not grow. Okay, so I hope that you got an overall idea on vernalization and its significance. It is also important to know that the positive effect of the vernalization of plants can be counteracted by subsequent high temperature treatment. This is called devernalization. But if the duration of the cold treatment has been longer, then the degree of devernalization decreases. That's all, but before we conclude, I have a situation for you to think on. Just imagine that I got some seeds of the biennial variety of the medicinal plant henbane, and I would like to grow them in my home garden. You know that vernalization, either natural or artificial, is essential for this plant to flower. But I am living in Kerala, a small state in India. This state lies in the tropical region, which means that here there are no distinct seasons. Daily average temperature ranges from 28 degrees Celsius to 32 degrees Celsius. In summer, it will go a bit higher. The day length is roughly the same throughout the year, 12 hours of day and night. Let's suppose that I sowed the seeds and the seedlings are now in the rosette stage and have completed 10 days of growth. At this point, I will do a vernalization treatment with these plants in a pot. After vernalization, if I keep them back in my garden, will they flower? From what we discussed until now, can you guess the answer? If yes, type it right now in the comment box below. By the way, before you answer, Keep in mind that even after vernalization, necessary photoperiod should be provided to the plant in order to flower. So maybe first you will have to find out what's the critical photoperiod of henbane. After that, think again. Will those vernalized henbane plants flower if I keep them in my home garden? I will be eagerly waiting for your responses. Thank you for being with me and stay tuned.